Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Zimbabwe is a nation ruled by fear. I think that is a reality that even those who didn't want to accept it have had to accept. Ever since the country's independence in 1980, fear of violence has always been a cornerstone of our political discourse. And ever since Zanu PF got into power, the regime has used violence to cow down the nation into submission, into accepting its role. 44 years down the line, the use of violence has not ended. And meanwhile, I think it is fair to say that we have had 44 years of corrupt, incompetent, and tyrannical rule that has dragged the nation deeper and deeper into economic crisis. And the political system itself, the Zanu PF autocracy, has created the political paralysis that has left the country absolutely desperate. As much as the nation has wanted change, at the end of the day, we've always felt helpless. Whenever Zanu PF's hold on power is threatened, the party's first reaction is to use violence. There's no doubt that Zimbabwe's economy is not getting any better. When Mnangagwa took over after 2017 military coup, he genuinely thought he was going to revive the economy. He hit the ground running with his Zimbabwe is open for business. He was so cocksure that he was opening the floodgate for the foreign investors who were going to kickstart the economy after 34 years of Mugabe's rule. But alas, that was not to be. Zimbabwe is open for business. The floodgate of investors never took place. Investors are a shrewd lot. They had stopped doing business with Zimbabwe for good reason. Zimbabwe was a pariah state ruled by a corrupt, incompetent, and tyrannical thugs whose number one priority was their own selfish end. The 2017 military coup did not change that. Mnangagwa tried to give the impression that things had changed. Everybody could see that nothing had changed. He promised to stamp out corruption. He promised to hold free, fair, and credible elections. Everybody could see that he was just never going to hold free, fair, and credible elections. And as for corruption, corruption has got significantly worse under his watch than it was during Mugabe's time. He has had to bribe a lot more people to maintain his stranglehold on power. But as the economic situation deteriorated, he has found himself in a position where many within his own party are getting restless. The message is very clear. You have failed. Give us a chance. And his message is he wants to hang on to power. How do you square that round circle? And his only way to hang on to power is to threaten everybody. So this last week, there was the Politburo, the Zanu PF Politburo meeting. And at the end of it, he was issuing his usual threat to those within his own party and those outside. This is what he had to say.
I'm fully aware that certain unruly elements, in collaboration with our detractors, have activated their perennial tendencies of seeking to disturb our security, peace, and prevailing tranquility environment in our country. They must be warned that my government will not broker any form of mischief under whatever pretext. The law will take its course without fear or favor. Atidi Mhesvamukono, Todzisvavanga.
So anyone who dares to criticize the regime is considered an enemy of the state. And in the past, we all know the sheer brutality that those so labeled, in some cases unjustly, have had to face. Mnangagwa has been involved with this culture of violence in Zanu PF, going back to post-independent 1983 with the Gukurahundi. He was at the heart of it. He has been involved in Zanu PF vote rigging schemes for the last 44 years. He was heavily involved in the 2008 election coup, when Zanu PF had lost power to Morgan Tsvangirai. And he even boasts about it. This is the irony of it. And as we know, he was also involved in the military coup of 2017. Here is an individual who would not hesitate to use brute force to hang on to power. And we all know he's desperate to hang on to power. It is widely believed that he's one of the richest men in Zimbabwe, all from 44 years of looting. And I think he has got a lot to answer for a lot of things that have gone wrong in Zimbabwe. And when you've got so many skeletons, so much wealth to protect. You can well imagine his total commitment to retaining power at all costs. My argument today is that we should not assume or make the mistake of thinking that he will not use violence. He will. I think what we must do as a nation is be a little smarter. This Zanu PF dictatorship has survived these last 44 years, not because men like him use force or they're smart. They are not. Yes, they use force, but they're not smart at all. Mnangagwa is just a buffoon, corrupt, incompetent. And right now, all these threats are clear sign that he's just in a panic, desperate to hang on to power. What we have failed to do these last 44 years is use our brain. I believe we had the golden opportunity to end this Zanu PF dictatorship during the 2008 to 2013 GNU. We failed to get even one token reform implemented. That wasn't because Mugabe was smart. Yes, he did bribe the MDC leaders with the trappings of high office, but only because they turned out to be corrupt and breathtakingly incompetent. We've had many other opportunities to end the Zanu PF dictatorship, and we failed to use them. I believe last year, if not only Chamisa and company turned out to be, which is not surprising, to be corrupt and incompetent, after all, many of those Chamisa and company came from the MDC leadership that failed to implement even one reform during the GNU. So we already know after the GNU that they were corrupt and incompetent, and so did Zanu PF. And so Zanu PF did not have any problem at all enticing to participate in flawed elections in return for a few gravity seats. And that's exactly what they've been doing ever since the GNU debacle of 2008 to 2013. We ourselves, as the people, as ordinary citizens, we've been slow in, first of all, realizing that MDC leaders sold out. At least during the GNU itself, we should have been wide awake to realize that the primary purpose of the GNU was to implement the democratic reforms, and therefore then made sure that MDC leaders implemented those reforms. We did not. We should have learned, at least from benefit of hindsight. Again, we failed to do so. The fact that we have been participating in these flawed elections, knowing fully well that the process is flawed, knowing fully well that by participating, we're giving the process legitimacy goes to show that we have got a serious problem as a people. We really have been very slow. And at the present moment, I know some people, particularly given the events in Kenya, for instance, where there have been street protests and so forth, some people have been inspired by those events, let's put it that way, to seek change in Zimbabwe through street protests. I think what I can say with confidence is that this Zanu PF regime would not hesitate to shed blood, because to them there is no such thing as a peaceful demonstration unless it is a demonstration organized by Zanu PF, of course. And so we can be certain that there will be violence if people do go on the street. But the other most important thing there is that the street protests or any form of violent attempt to have political change would not necessarily deliver a democratic solution. And I think we should not be looking for violent change when a peaceful change solution is before us, if we only would take advantage of it. We did not have to participate in last year's elections because we should have known, as David quoted in this quotation I'm showing at the bottom of the screen. He admitted in his book that the electoral process in 2018 was so flawed, so illegal, that the only logical step was to withdraw. That has been the case ever since. 2018 was the same thing. Last year, it was also the same thing. We should not participate in a flawed election. So flawed, we already know the predetermined result is a Zanu PF win. And we also know that if we participate, we give the process legitimacy. And yet we continue to participate. In 2018, Chamisa assured his followers that he had stringent measures to stop Zanu PF breaking the elections. They believed him. They participated. By participating, they gave Zanu PF legitimacy. Last year, it was the same thing. When are we ever going to learn? We need to learn. The 2028 elections are 4 years away. It's not far. And so far, I believe that all those people who were conned into participating in flawed elections in 2023 will do so again. Chamisa has only got to promise them that this time we will definitely win and they will participate. That is the flaw that we have got to deal with, that we have failed to deal with adequately. Why is it that we are so gullible? That we easily believe not only once, twice, now 3 times. We are enticed to believe that we can win rigged elections. We forget the advice that if you participate, you give Zanu PF legitimacy. Mnangagwa is a brutal thug. And to ever think that we can confront him on the street without serious risk, life and limb, is naive. And why would you go to the street if you can get change on the democratic arena? I believe SADC election observers have done the people of Zimbabwe a great favor when they produced their report clearly stating that Zanu PF had rigged last year's elections. And if you can, and if it is, in fact, it is clear, in my view, that they would have denied Zanu PF political legitimacy if the people of Zimbabwe themselves had not participated in their millions in those elections. If C leaders had not accepted their seats soon after the elections, even when they read SADC's report condemning the election process. And thirdly, if C had not imploded, if I was a SADC leader, I definitely would not have denied Zanu PF political legitimacy, given the events that followed soon after the 2023 elections, when Mhesvamukono started recalling C leaders, and C soon literally imploded. And the leader himself, Chamisa, has since resigned from the party and walked away. Why would I demand that Zanu PF should be denied political legitimacy? To what end and purpose? We need to send a clear message to every Zimbabwean. The 2 million who participated and voted for Chamisa last year, and an estimated 2 million, at least 2 million others, most of them in the diaspora, who cheered and applauded Chamisa's participation in last year's election. What we need in 2028, I know we are not going to get any meaningful reforms implemented. Zanu PF will never reform itself out of office. I know we are not going to get the few C leaders who are in office today to do anything to force through any meaningful reforms. What we can do is make it very clear that we are not going to participate in 2028 elections without meaningful reforms. That message needs to be sent loud and clearly. And so far, we are not doing it. Those of you who are thinking of street protests, I can tell you, Mnangagwa will be waiting for you on the street. And that is a battle that you'll never win. Thank you very much for joining me tonight, and have a good day.